Alright, what's up everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ilias, I'm a photographer located in Athens, Greece, and in this video we're going to be basically doing an update on my last year's video about the best and most value for money lenses for your Nikon APS-C body. I'm sorry for the background noise a little bit. I have a few kittens over here which are fighting with each other, playing, let's say. So yeah, let the cats be cats. Anyways, as of right now, we have 4 APS-C Nikon bodies. We have the Nikon Z50, which is my personal favorite and my everyday choice. We have the Nikon Z50, we have the Nikon Z30, and we also have the new and recently announced Nikon Z50 II. Now we have to talk about the whole video a little bit before we continue on, but there are going to be timestamps down below if you want to skip to a specific part of the video and check out specific prime lenses or zoom lenses, then you can do that easily down below. But before you skip to whatever part you want to, I just want to say that at some part of the whole video I'm going to be announcing a giveaway about this TT Artisan 56mm f1.8. It is an APS-C Nikon Z mount lens. I love this lens, I have used it, I have also made a review about it. You can check it down below in the description. But yeah, at some point of the video I'm going to be announcing the giveaway about this lens. And if you're wondering who the hell am I in order to make a lens guide or a buying guide for all these lenses, I have been shooting with the Nikon ZFC and many lenses on it. Right now I own about 15 plus lenses for the Nikon Z system, and I have used many more. Here in front of me I have like so many different lenses. It's crazy. And I also have access to a few unreleased lenses like this lens over here on my Nikon ZFC. So yeah, I've used many lenses, I have tested many lenses, and yeah, I basically know which lens is the best to buy and at what price point. I also won't be recommending any really expensive lenses. Like, I think I will set the bar at around $1,000. Personally, I won't spend $1,000+ for a lens which I'm going to be mounting on my entry-level Nikon Z crop system camera over here. If you have the money to buy something that expensive, then you're probably not using a Nikon Z crop system camera, and you also have your full frame cameras laying around. I think that most people that are using these cameras are beginners, enthusiasts, or people that are trying to go pro and they're trying to learn more professional stuff on their Nikon Z crop system cameras. And for these people, I don't think that it's smart for their wallets to go out there and spend $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 for a lens. So yeah, $1,000 is the cap, but most of the lenses are going to be much less than that price point. And one last thing before we continue on with this whole price guide, I'm not going to be recommending any f-mount lenses, any older DSLR lenses. Of course you can use them, but I personally hate using adapters. So yeah, that's a personal choice of mine. If you want to use f-mount glass, or if you want to find another video for f-mount glass, that's not the video over here. If I had to recommend 3 f-mount lenses for your Nikon APS-C body to adapt to, then I will choose the Nikon 35mm f1.8 GDX. Excellent lens, small, of course not so small with adapter, but yeah, you get the point. Really nice image rendering and also really cheap. The other one is the Sigma 17-50 f2.8. I used this lens when I had a Nikon D3400 and I loved it, and at the moment I basically got it. It almost never came off my camera because it was the lens to rule them all. It was a fast zoom with a fast aperture and with image stabilization. So yeah, you can find it used really cheap at around 200. It's worth it. And one last lens that I can recommend is the Sigma 150-600, if I'm not mistaken. It's a really nice zoom, it's a sharp zoom, and it's a really nice option for a telephoto lens if you wanted to adapt on your Nikon Z camera. It has much more reach than any other offering that Nikon gives us right now, at least at the price point that we're looking to. So let's begin this price guide by talking about basically the wide primes that I'm recommending and the wide primes that you should probably avoid. So the first wide prime that I really recommend is the one that I also use a lot for landscapes, for astro, and for architecture. It's basically the TT-Artisan 10mm f2. It's a really well-made lens. It's a really cheap lens as well. It has really good image quality, especially if you step it down, the image becomes really sharp. And the amazing thing is that it's ultra wide, but also at the same time, you keep the lines of your image straight, so you don't get that fisheye look. I'm not a huge fan of fisheye lenses, so the fact that I can get a wide prime like the 10mm f2 and have straight lines, yeah, that's perfect for me. So if you're looking for a 10mm, it's a great lens to have. But at the same time, keep in mind, it's only manual focus. Zooming in a little bit, we have the best wide-angle prime that we can get. It's basically the Viltrox 13mm f1.4. This lens has autofocus, and the autofocus is really fast. The build quality is great. If I'm not mistaken, for the Nikon Z system, we also have weather sealing on that lens, but don't quote me on that. Beautiful image quality, really sharp lens. For the money, I think that's the best lens that you can get. If you want a wide-angle prime, and 13mm is the focal length that you like, you can't go wrong with this lens. Zooming in a little bit further, we also have the Sigma 60mm f1.4. This is the first lens of the Sigma trio that we're going to talk about in this video. It's a really nice lens, you can't go wrong with it. If you're using your kit lens all the time at 60mm, then I think it should be wise to also invest on the Sigma 16mm. If you really like that focal length, then you can't go wrong with the Sigma. Great price, great image quality, autofocus. You can't ask for more than that. Zooming in a little bit further, we have the Viltrox 20mm f2.8. This is a full frame lens, so if you are planning on investing also on a full frame body, then you can also use this lens on your full frame camera basically, but it might not be the best choice for your Nikon APS-C because it only has an aperture of f2.8, but it's really sharp. It is a 20mm, which you can also use later on your full frame body if you want to, and it's really cheap. It comes in less than $200 or euros, so yeah, I think for the price of that, with getting autofocus and a razor sharp image, you can't really go wrong with this option over here. And at 20mm, I personally don't think that you should care about the aperture or the amount of bokeh that a lens produces, so f2.8 is a really nice aperture to use. After the 20mm mark, we have two 23mm lenses that I personally recommend. First and foremost, we have the Viltrox 23mm f1.4 over here. I love this lens, it has great image quality, it has an aperture ring, which I personally don't use, but some people care about that. It comes with a metallic lens hood. So yeah, the build quality is great. The image quality is also really nice. It's not the sharpest lens wide open at f1.4, but it produces really nice images. It has probably the best autofocus at that millimeter range, and that's why I use it in order to film all of my YouTube videos. Like, I use it on my Nikon ZFC, and the combination is perfect. I had never a video that was out of focus basically my whole life while using this lens, but the past few years, Viltrox for some reason increased the price of this bad boy a lot, so I can recommend it only if you can find it less than $300 or euros. If it's more expensive than that, then no, I don't recommend it. I remember buying it from the Viltrox website for around $250, so I would not consider paying more than $300, close to $400 for what this lens is going for. So yeah, if you can find it cheaper than $300, then this comes highly recommended. The other lens at 23mm that I can personally recommend is the Sirui 23mm f1.2 sniper lens. I've owned the Sirui 23mm for quite a bit of time. It produces magical images. You get that 1.2 aperture, which can create beautiful bokeh, great low light performance, and all that kind of stuff. It also comes with autofocus, which rarely misses. It's a very good lens. The only negative is that wide open at f1.2, at f1.4, it's not the sharpest optic out there. But again, it's an f1.2 lens, and the images and the videos that you can create with it, they're magical. If you really want that 1.2 look on your APS-C body, then you can't go wrong with the Sirui. And it's also really cheap. Less than $300 or euros, which is crazy to be completely honest. And after these two 23mm, we have a really popular optic. It's the 24mm f1.7 from Nikon itself. I've used that Nikon lens a lot. It's a small plastic Nikon lens, but the image quality is better from the previous 23mm that we talked about. Even though it's smaller and even though it's lighter, it is sharper wide open, which is crazy. Obviously, if we step all these lenses down, then we get the same sharpness, but wide open, the Nikon 24mm performs better than the Viltrox over here and better than the series. Again, the only reason why I kept the Viltrox over the Nikon and the series is the autofocus. I've tested the Nikon 24mm against the Viltrox over here, and the Nikon lens hunted way more than the Viltrox lens over here, and I like good autofocus, to be completely honest, especially because I want to film myself. Autofocus is a top priority for me. The Nikon lens was slower. It obviously has to do something with the smaller size, but the Viltrox was faster. But again, for the price, for the image quality, for the size of the lens, the Nikon 24mm f1.7 comes highly recommended. If you're looking for a small wide prime, go for it. I also have a review on it, like I have on many other lenses in this list, and I will be linking hopefully most of these videos down below in the description. Zooming in also a little bit further, we have the TT Artisan 25mm f2. So this is the cheapest lens that I will have on this list over here. It comes at around $50 or something like that. It doesn't have autofocus, it's a fully manual lens, but it's a small, really well made, full metallic. There is no plastic in here. Even the back over here is metallic, which is crazy. I love this lens. For the price, the image quality is really great. The only problem that it has is with lens flares, like the lens flare on that lens is trash, but other than that, the sharpness is great, the handling is great, the build quality is great, the size is really small. So yeah, you can't go wrong with an optic like that. It's really fun to play around with. Continuing on, we have two 27mm f2.8 autofocus lenses. We have this plastic offer over here from TT Artisan. It has autofocus, it has an aperture ring, and it's really lightweight because basically it's all plastic made. And we also have the unreleased, as of now, it's going to be released in a few days. It's the Astro Hori 27mm f2.8 lens over here. This Astro Hori lens is going to be cheaper than the TT Artisan. I think this is close to 150, 160 if I'm not mistaken, and this is going to be at 120, 130. So yeah, it's going to be cheaper. It has better build quality. This is a full metal lens. It has a much stiffer manual focus ring, but I think that the Astro Hori lens is also sharper. I'm not 100% on that, but from some samples that I have seen, the Astro Hori lens seems sharper. I'm going to be doing a direct comparison in the next few weeks between these two lenses, so if you're on a lookout for a really cheap prime lens for your everyday life, then these lenses are great for that. They're really cheap, so yeah, keep an eye out basically for this comparison. Both of these lenses have a few issues with the image quality, and at f2.8 you won't be really getting a really nice background blur or something like that. But first of all, if you go close enough, you will get a nice separation between your subject and the background. The TT Artisan also has a really nice swirly bokeh look on the autofocus area, so that's really nice. And as of now, the only main problem that I found is, again, the terrible lens flares. Both of these lenses suffer from lens flaring, but other than that, I think that they are really nice lenses, especially at that price point, which offer also autofocus. And yeah, like I said, I think the Astro Hori is a little bit better, but we have to wait for that comparison video. At 27mm, we also have the best of the best wide prime for our Nikon APS-C bodies. It's basically the Viltrox 27mm f1.2. This lens is really sharp, great build quality, great autofocus. You really can't go wrong with it. It is a big lens, but it's so worth it. If you have the money, invest in the Viltrox 27mm f1.2. You won't regret it. Shooting at f1.2 with autofocus and with that sharpness, it's just crazy. Two more companies that I can recommend which make really nice wide primes are basically Laowa and Brightening Star. If you know anything about Laowa, then you know that their wide primes are really good. So yeah, if you find a prime lens that you like from Laowa, then it's probably going to be really nice. And the same thing goes for Brightening Star as well. They offer some really nice wide angle primes, and I think that for the price of them, you really can't go wrong. So these are all the wide primes that I recommend. Let's now talk about the wide primes that I don't recommend. And first and foremost, we have the Nikon 26mm f2.8. This lens looks like a dream lens because it's really small, it's a pancake lens, it's a Nikon offering, it has autofocus, it's also a full frame lens as well, but it's so expensive and I simply cannot recommend a lens that expensive. If Nikon would offer that lens for 200, maximum 300, then yes, it will be on the list. But as of right now, no. They are much better offering in the table. Don't spend your money on that lens. I don't think it's worth it. I mean, if you have money laying around, then for sure go for it, but in my opinion, it's not worth it. Obviously, the 26mm is a good lens. Almost every Nikon lens is a great lens, but for the price of it, I cannot recommend it. And the same thing applies to the 28mm f2.8. Actually, not the same thing because it's cheaper, but I don't see any reason why anyone would invest on the 28mm f2.8. The 28mm is a full frame lens. It comes sometimes as a kit with the Nikon Z50. Don't get that 28mm. Prefer to get the Nikon 60mm to 50mm kit lens over here. It's a much better value for money lens. And like I said, the 28mm lens basically got killed with the release of the Nikon 24mm f1.7. They have basically the same size, the same image quality, but the 24mm is also much brighter. It has an f1.7 aperture and the 28mm has an f2.8 aperture. Unless you have a full frame body, then I don't see any reason for someone to go for the 28mm and not any other lens of my list. At the same time, I would also avoid every 7 Artisan and TT Artisan low budget, cheap manual focus lens, except from the TT Artisan 25mm f2. Every other lens that I have researched on, it's not worth it. Like, of course, they are cheap, they're nice and all kind of stuff, but the image quality is terrible. And if you want that character on your images, then I think it's much better and much more fun to invest on some older vintage glass. And one other company that I personally would recommend to avoid as a beginner and as an enthusiast is basically Voigtlander. Don't get me wrong, Voigtlander makes probably the best manual focus lenses out there. The rendering and the 3D pop and the overall image quality that these lenses produce, they are top notch. The manual focus handling is also elite. The build quality is also elite, but they cost a lot of money. And I don't think that it's wise for me to tell you to invest in a manual focus lens that is that expensive. Again, if you want to buy Voigtlander lenses, go for it. They are elite lenses. They have that beautiful 3D pop, but in my opinion, you should avoid them, especially if you are a beginner or an enthusiast. Moving on to the normal primes that I can recommend and also not recommend. And as normal primes, I consider basically 30mm to 56, 60mm. And the first lens that I can recommend over here is basically the Sigma 30mm f1.4. It's a really nice all-around lens. It comes with autofocus, it has a great price on it, great image quality. Yeah, there's not much to talk about it. It's the worst performer from the other Sigma lenses, but again, for the money, I think that it's totally worth it. Zooming in a little bit further, we have the Siri 33mm f1.2 sniper lens. Again, everything that we said about the 23mm applies to the 33mm as well. You get to use that f1.2 aperture with autofocus on a really low price. The images are going to be a little bit softer from, let's say, the Sigma 33mm, but at the same time, your images and your videos are going to be looking magical. I have also used that Siri lens for a few paid photo shoots, and I can say that the autofocus works great, the image quality was great, the clients were really happy, and yeah, overall, it is a really nice offering. Zooming in a little bit further, we have the 7 Artisans 35mm f0.95. It's a manual focus lens. It also has an extreme aperture, and in comparison with other extreme aperture lenses, this one is surprisingly good. So if you want to have a 0.95 aperture lens, then that 35mm comes really recommended. It's a manual focus lens, of course, but yeah, if you want to play around with something that bright, go for it. Zooming in a bit further, we have the Nikon 40mm f2. It's basically the lens that is recording me right now on the Nikon Z5. The Nikon 40mm f2 is a great lens. It's not as bright as some other prime lenses for your APS-C. It has an f2 aperture. Meanwhile, the Sigmas and the Viltroxes have 1.4 or 1.2, but the 40mm lens is also a full frame lens. So again, if you're planning on investing on a full frame camera, then this is a really nice offering both for your full frame and also for your APS-C cameras. It has a really special image rendering. It has that 3D pop, in my opinion, like my images feel alive when I'm shooting with this lens. I've shot many weddings with it. I use it basically all the time both on my Nikon Z5 and also on my Nikon ZFC over here. It is really cheap, it has great autofocus, it is plastic made, but yeah, that's fine by me. It is also a Nikon offering, so yeah, you really can't go wrong with a 40mm f2. Another 40mm lens that I can easily recommend is the Viltrox 40mm f2.5. This lens again is a full frame lens, it's a direct competitor to the Nikon 40mm f2, but it's much cheaper, surprisingly, and the differences are basically the Viltrox is much sharper, the lens is razor sharp, the 40mm has better rendering, the bokeh is smoother and all kind of stuff, so it has a little bit more pleasing images, at least in my opinion, and the autofocus is also a little bit faster on the Nikon lens. But again, for the price of the Viltrox, and if sharpness is something that is a top priority for you, then you can't go wrong with the 40mm f2.5 lens from Viltrox. Really cheap, a full frame lens as well, and really, really sharp. I've used this lens as well, I have a review on it as well. I don't have it on my table right now because I have loaned it to a cousin of mine, but yeah, I love it. Zooming in a little bit further, we have another manual focus lens. We have the TT-Artsan 50mm f1.2 over here. This lens is a manual focus lens only. It is a 50mm f1.2, so you get beautiful bokeh, and the most surprising thing is that even at f1.2, this lens is really, really sharp. I don't know how they did that, and at least at the center of the image, so if you place your model at the center of your image, you're going to be getting really sharp images even at f1.2, which is crazy to me. The build quality is great, it's a full metallic lens, it's also a heavy lens. It looks like it's not heavy, but it's a heavy lens, and look at the aperturing. This is beautiful. The handling of this lens, the manual focus ring, the aperture ring, the sharpness, the 1.2 aperture, and for the price of it, you really can't go wrong. If you want to invest on a manual focus lens, on a cheap manual focus lens as well, do it. This 50mm f1.2 is definitely worth it. And zooming in also a little bit further, we have three 56mm lenses that I can personally easily recommend. The first and the best lens in this category is the Sigma 56mm f1.4. This lens has autofocus, it also has a great price point, nice build quality, but the image quality is razor sharp. I think it's the sharpest lens in this category. You can't go wrong with it. You can't beat it. It's a really nice lens. If you have the money, for sure invest in something like that if you like the 56mm focal length. The other two options are basically the Viltrox 56mm f1.7. It's a new lens, it's a cheap lens, it comes at less than 200, really sharp, really nice autofocus, great option, and it's also small as well. And the other lens that I can recommend is the TT-Artsan 56mm f1.8 over here. It is larger than the Viltrox, surprisingly, but the build quality is great. It comes with a really nice and sexy lens hood over here. The image quality is also great. I have made a review on it with nice portraits and all kind of stuff, and you can see on that review that this lens is really sharp. And at this point, I want to also announce that I'm going to be giving away this lens for free if you follow these next few steps. So first and foremost, you need to be following me on my Instagram, because I will make my final announcement about the winner on my Instagram page. Secondly, you need to be subscribed on this channel, and lastly, you need to leave a comment down below. The comment doesn't have to be specific about this lens, but you can tell me why you want to win this lens, or if you, I don't know, like my face, hate my face, comment whatever you want. So yeah, these three steps: follow me on my Instagram, be subscribed on this channel, and leave a comment down below. So yeah, that's about it for the giveaway. I will try to give away more stuff down the road, because I have a few lenses that I'm not using all that much, and it's a shame for them to just sit on my desk and yeah, getting all dusty. So if you're interested in that, or if you're interested in photography, street photography, portrait photography, travel photography, videography, and all that kind of stuff, we're doing everything in this channel. So if you want to subscribe and maybe even liking the videos, this would mean a lot to me. Anyways, let's continue on with the video. This is Editor Elias over here, and I forgot to mention two lenses that I also recommend in this category, and it's basically the new Nikon 35mm and 50mm f1.4s. These are both full frame lenses. At f1.4 they are a little bit soft, but that's quite alright. They have a beautiful look, and the price point is really appealing, to be honest. So yeah, both Nikon 35mm and 50mm f1.4s are coming, also recommended in this lens category. So about the normal primes that I basically cannot recommend. First and foremost, we have the Nikon 50mm f1.8. This is probably a shocker to most of you, but if you just have an APS-C Nikon body, there is no reason to get the Nikon 50mm f1.8 over the Sigma 56mm f1.4. The Sigma has more bokeh, is sharper, is cheaper. It basically is much better for your APS-C body than the Nikon 50mm f1.8. If you have a full frame camera, then that's another story, but we're talking about APS-C cameras over here, so the Sigma is a much better option. The same thing applies also to the Viltrox 56mm f1.4 and also to the Siri 56mm f1.2. Both of these lenses are worse performers than the Sigma 56mm f1.4, and I don't see any reason why anyone will choose these over the Sigma when they are close in the price range. Skip these lenses and go straight for the Sigma. You should also avoid the Viltrox 33mm f1.4 for the same reason as previous. The Sigma 30mm f1.4 is just the better lens. You should also avoid the 7 Artisans 50mm and 25mm. I forgot to talk about 25mm earlier, but yeah, the 50mm and 25mm f0.95, they're not worth it. You are paying for the 0.95 aperture and it's terrible. In my opinion, just avoid these lenses. If you want a 0.95 lens, the 7 Artisans 35mm is a much better option. And lastly, once again, we also have a few Voigtlander lenses at this price point. Many people use them, many people swear by them, and I can completely agree with these people, but I can't recommend them as value for money lenses. If you have the money, go for your Voigtlanders, but if you're tight on the budget, avoid them at any cost. Alright, let's continue on to the semi-telephoto portraiture range of prime lenses. The list over here is much smaller because there are not many lenses to choose from, but some of the lenses that you can choose, they are top quality. So first and foremost, we have the new TTR Sun 75mm f2, I think. It's also a full frame lens. It also comes with autofocus. It has really nice image quality and it comes in less than $200. So if you want a cheap lens with autofocus and really nice image quality in less than $200, the TTR Sun 75mm f2 is a really nice option. Just keep in mind that the autofocus is not the fastest out there. You will probably get a hit rate at around 70 to 80%, but if you're shooting regular portraits or you want this lens for, let's say, street photography or something like that, then you really can't go wrong with it. And the second and last lens that I can recommend in this focal range is basically the Viltrox 75mm f1.2. This lens is the king of portraiture for APS-C bodies. f1.2 aperture, really sharp, great build quality, really fast autofocus. You basically cannot go wrong with that Viltrox 75mm f1.2. If you want the best portrait lens for your APS-C body, this is the lens to get. So about the portrait lenses that I don't recommend, we basically have the Viltrox 85mm f1.8. It's funny because I don't recommend this lens, but I also own it. There are two reasons why I own this lens. The first and more obvious is because I bought it before the Viltrox 75mm lens got released, and the only reason why I keep holding on it and not jumping for the 75mm is because I also own a full frame body right now for my weddings and for some other stuff, so I can also use it on a full frame body. So there is no point for my use case to sell it and go for the 75mm from Viltrox. If you don't have a full frame body, go for the 75mm. Skip this lens over here for sure. And the same thing applies to the Nikon 85mm f1.8. Yes, the Nikon 85mm 1.8 is a Nikon lens. It's also a really sharp lens, but the 75mm from Viltrox is just a much better option for your APS-C camera over here. So about the zoom lenses that I can recommend for your Nikon APS-C body, basically I can recommend every Nikon APS-C zoom that we have the Nikon 12mm to 28mm power zoom lens. We have my personal favorite lens, the Nikon 16mm to 50mm kit lens. I use this lens all the time for my traveling, for my street photography, for basically almost everything. I've taken some of my best images of all time with this lens, and even though it's probably one of my least expensive lenses, and even though I have used more than 20 lenses with my Nikon Z50 over here, this is the best kit lens in the industry. If you have this lens, please don't sell it. Keep using it. It's really sharp, it's really lightweight, it's plastic made, so you don't care if it breaks, you can just buy it again. Such a good lens, such a good lens. The images that you're seeing right now on the screen speak for themselves. The Nikon 18mm to 140mm is also a really nice option. It's a lens basically to rule them all. And for your telephoto needs, we also have the 50mm to 250mm lens. Again, a really sharp kit lens from Nikon. If you have the choice to get it as a bundle with your Nikon Z camera, then definitely do it. You will save a lot of money and you will get a really nice telephoto zoom lens for your Nikon Z APS-C system. There are also some other Nikon zoom lenses like the 24mm to 400mm, which is a really nice lens, but it's 1.5K and I cannot recommend something that expensive to someone that owns a Nikon Z50, a Nikon Z30 and all kind of stuff. There are also some other telephoto primes and zoom lenses like the 180 to 600, and I really want to own a lens like that. But yeah, all these lenses, they are $2,000, $3,000. So for me, and I think for most people who own a ZFC or another low budget camera, these lenses are basically out of our reach, at least for now. And there's also another lens that some people recommend, the 24mm to 120mm f4. So this lens has a constant aperture. The image quality is also elite, but for your APS-C camera, I think that it's much better to get the 18mm to 140. It is wider, it has more reach. Keep that 24mm to 120mm for your full frame cameras. And yeah, I think that's basically it about the whole lens list. Of course, I probably forgot some lenses because there are so many companies making third-party glass and all kind of stuff. So if you have anything else to recommend, please type it down in the comments for me and for anyone else to see. I'm not God, I don't know anything, so if you have anything else to add, please do it down below on the comments. The whole lens list will be on the first comment down below pinned, so if you want to check it out, it's going to be down below. I will try to upgrade this list a little bit down the comments if something else gets released and it's worth mentioning. You will also find Amazon affiliate links for every lens that I recommended down below. So if you get these lenses from these Amazon affiliate links, then I will get something back and it won't cost you more. But again, if you can find these lenses somewhere cheaper, of course, get them somewhere cheaper. One last thing that I want to mention, if you want to support this channel even further, then you can also check out my Lightroom presets down below. I have a preset pack which is really inexpensive. So if you like my editing style on Instagram and over here on YouTube, then these are the presets that I personally created and use. So yeah, if you want to support me even further, you can do that by getting my presets down below in the description. Lastly, don't forget about the giveaway. I will announce the winner probably on Christmas as a present or something like that. That would be funny. As always, I really do appreciate every single one of you that choose to spend a little bit of your really valuable time by watching my content. This really means the world to me. If you like photography, if you like videography, if you want to follow my journey as a photographer, then please subscribe or maybe even leave a like in this video. This really helps out with the algorithm. And yeah, I'll see you all next time. Take care. Peace.